what's the big difference between the rich and the poor? And I don't mean that the rich have got more money. There's a lot more to it than that. And that's why I've written so much about the differences between the rich and the poor over the years. In fact, I've written the book Rich Habits, Poor Habits together with my good friend Tom Corley, and it's selling like gangbusters all around the world in many different languages. So here with me today to discuss the big differences between the rich and the poor is Tom Corley. Welcome, Tom.
Hey, Michael. Good to see you, my friend.
Now, we were only just talking about how this book has been successful in quite a number of countries and now being translated into lots of different languages.
Yeah, we're going to be in China. We're working on Vietnam right now, and you and I were talking about South Korea and India.
And Poland, of all languages.
And Poland, you're right. And yeah, so it's amazing. We've got quite a following all over the world. Isn't it incredible?
So what I'd like today to do is summarize some of the big differences, because if we learn what makes a difference between the wealthy and successful people. Now, rich and success doesn't always go hand in hand, and we can discuss that in a moment. But if we can understand how others did it, we can achieve it as well. So I've actually recognized that to change your life financially, it really has to be done in the right order and the right steps. First of all, you've got to become aware. It starts within you. You've got to recognize your disempowering beliefs, your poor habits, your thoughts, because they lead to your habits, they lead to your actions, which lead to your results. Then you've got to remove these poor habits, these disempowering beliefs, and you've got to reprogram them. You've got to develop new habits. But Tom, you and I know this isn't theory. You spent 3 years studying 233 wealthy people, 128 poor people, and your findings were in your first book, Rich Habits. I've mentored over 2,500 successful investors, business people, entrepreneurs over a decade now. So my suggestion is that if the people watching this are keen to step up, take the next level financially, this session is going to show you what the rich do differently. We're going to show you how they think so you can learn from them, so you can become one of them. But Tom, the good news, I think, is that in most of the places people are going to watch this, in Western developed countries, anyone can become rich. I know your study found that most of the people you were looking at were actually self-made millionaires. They weren't handed their money.
No, and boy, this is a hot topic because I just was doing an interview with Yahoo Finance on Kylie Jenner, who was in the Forbes list, and Yahoo Finance reached out to me because they wanted to know what's my definition of being self-made. Is Kylie Jenner self-made? And what I found in my research, of all the 177 of the 233 people that I interviewed, the wealthy people, 177 of them were self-made millionaires. Now, what does that mean? That means that they either came from poverty or the middle class. They created something out of nothing, and they made themselves wealthy in the process. So self-made, it's not just about coming from poverty in the middle class. It's a lot more than that. But the point is that you do it on your own. You create something out of nothing, and because it's your baby, it's something that you're passionate about. You devote a lot of time to it, and because you like it, you're going to spend more time on it, and you're going to develop skills and knowledge you didn't have before. And this is very important. It's part of what I call dream setting. And the self-made millionaires in my study, a lot of them were dreamers. They were entrepreneurs. As I mentioned to you, when you're an entrepreneur, you face nothing but adversity. We were talking about it before we started this, and when you love what you're doing, you're able to overcome the obstacles, the pitfalls, and the persistent eventually get lucky.
Well, that's interesting, Tom, because it's not a straight line to success. Today with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, you see people's highlight reels. You don't see all the bits on the cutting room floor. So you compare yourself to other people and think, oh, I can't do that. But that's not true. It requires passion, as you said. So that's an important trait of successful people. It requires persistence. That's another important trait, to get up one more time. It requires taking risk, and it requires action. But why would you bother? I know in your study, you found that being rich eliminates a lot of the world's problems, a lot of your own personal problems.
Yeah, I found actually that once you become wealthy, you eliminate about 67% of the problems people have every day. This is worrying about paying your bills. If your water heater breaks, now all of a sudden it's a worry because you got to replace it. You may not have the money. You have to finance it. Maybe you have to go to a credit card. Maybe you go to a bank. Well, a lot of these financial issues, a lot of these even health issues can be solved by money. But when you're rich, you don't, if you have a leak in your roof, you don't think, oh my gosh, this is a major problem. Your main thought is, what's the phone number of the guy that I use to fix my house? And that's it. That's when your problem begins and ends.
I know in our book, Rich Habits, Poor Habits, I wrote the comment that any problem that money can solve isn't a problem. Now, let's be blunt. Money doesn't solve everything. So money is really important in those areas of your life where it's important. And it's not at all important in those areas in your life where it isn't. So we're not saying that you've got to be obsessed with it. You've got to be a good person to be truly wealthy. You've got to have health. You've got to have somebody who loves you, and you've got to be able to love somebody. You've got to be able to learn and grow. But if we're talking about money, Tom, I think we realize that it does solve a lot of problems. One of the challenges we're seeing here in Australia, I don't know if it's the same where you are in the United States, is there seems to be a swing to the left. There seems to be a swing to socialism where people are expecting the government, the institutions, the world to look after them. They think that the world owes you something. I've found, Tom, unfortunately, the world owes you nothing.
Yeah, this really is a problem in America. It's probably a bigger problem than it is in Australia because we now have a Democratic Party, which used to represent, hardworking middle-class Americans. They now represent people who want to become socialists. And I think it's born out of ignorance. A lot of it is also with respect to these people who are struggling in America with high student loan debt, high credit card debt. They can't solve the problem themselves because they have a lot of poor habits. They don't realize that it's their habits that are responsible for their poverty. So they're looking to government. Now, the government's not going to be able to change their habits, right? But what the government is able to do, if it becomes a socialist government, is forgive all the debt that you have, that the poor habits created. And they like that. They like the idea of, hey, I know I spent $120,000 on college to get a psychology degree that nobody cares about when you get into the real world. I got to get rid of that $120,000 debt. And by the way, I also incurred about $10,000, $15,000 on credit card debt. I'd like that to go away too. So there's this being fed by politicians, this idea that we can solve all of your financial problems. But unfortunately, what it does is it destroys the goose that laid the golden egg, socialism anyway. The individuals who succeeded on merit, who took risks, who did go into debt to pursue a dream. It basically kills off that whole part of society in order to save the other. It's killing off the good people in order to save the bad people.
Some people will say, well, that's not fair. You don't know. My parents came from a poor background. I didn't have a good education. It's not my fault. It's the government's fault, education. Oh, my father was an alcoholic. We know that that's not necessarily the case. And of course, they'll also say, oh, but those rich people, those successful people, they were lucky. And we've recognized that to become rich, to become successful, to become a good businessman, entrepreneur, mother, father, you need the right mindset. You need to have the right habits. Also, you do need skills. It's not just luck. You have to be willing to succeed in spite of the adversity. But there is an element of luck, isn't there, Tom?
Yeah, I'll be the first one to acknowledge that luck plays a significant role in wealth. But it's a different type of luck. It's a luck that I call opportunity luck. We've talked about it a lot. But you need to put yourself in a position of creating opportunities where good luck can happen. And how you do that is by having these good, what we call rich habits, where you're doing all of the right things. Now, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes many years. But by having these rich habits, it does a number of things. One is it increases your knowledge base. It improves your skills. It improves your health. I talk a lot about how aerobic exercise is important because it feeds the brain with oxygen Oxygen is a primary source of fuel for neurons in the brain. So if you have more oxygen in the brain, you're going to think clearer. Your brain's going to be cleaner. So that's one of the things I found about the wealthy. Because they were doing a lot of these good, rich habits, particularly the health habits, and the self-improvement habits, they were actually growing their IQ over the years. They were increasing their IQ, 30, 40 points in some cases. You go from 95 to 125 just because of your habits.
Now, that's really interesting because a lot of people think your IQ is fixed and I'm dumb, I can't change, it's not my fault, this is the way it was. That's not true, is it, Tom?
No, it's not true. And I'll tell you, I remember I had to take an IQ test when I was in grammar school and it came back at like 102. And then when I was working, I was studying I was going to graduate school and I was going for another degree, another license. And at the time that I was told I had to take an IQ test when I was a tax manager, I was reluctant because I didn't want them to find out I had a low IQ, 102. Well, when I took it, it came back 136. So my IQ actually increased from 102 in grammar school to 136 when I was around 40 years of age. So your IQ does change, but it only changes if you have certain habits that you engage in that improve the way your brain works, and that's self-improvement and health, good health.
So what are those habits that are important to make you smarter?
So I'm a big believer from the research that I've been accumulating over many years, probably a decade now. Aerobic exercise increases your IQ by cleaning your brain and improving the performance of brain cells. It makes the axon on the neuron thicker, the myelin sheath thicker. How you eat, if you're eating a lot of spinach, broccoli, vegetables, a lot of omega-3, food with omega-3 fatty acids in it, you're going to improve your health. Also, by studying. I study every day. I even maintain a fact binder. And I have something called my monthly fact binder, and I list facts on a piece of paper, and I read it every morning for January, for February, for March. I have all different facts. Well, this improves your brain performance because it's actually like a mental exercise. It's forcing you to exercise your brain. So if you have some of these rich habits where you're exercising your brain, not only through aerobic exercise, but through mental challenges like you and I do all the time, you're going to improve brain performance. It also helps improve your decision-making ability. There's another thing I want to mention. Sleep, 7 to 8 hours of sleep. That actually boosts your willpower. Willpower is important when it comes to decision-making because if you struggle with what they call decision fatigue, at a point where you're at a time when you're making a decision, you're going to make a bad decision. So you want to be doing all of the things that help boost your willpower. And that's things like exercising, eating right, and getting enough sleep.
Now, it's interesting, Tom, that the reason we're explaining this, the reason we're taking the time to do our podcasts, our blogs, these videos, is because we recognize that if people change their habits, if people model successful people, they can become that way as well. And that's the aim of the work we're doing. So when I learned that there is a shortcut to success, and it's to see how other people do it, and then not just do what they do, but you have to go in deeper and think how they think and develop the habits that they do, it sped up my growth of personally, my business, my wealth, and my well-being in all sorts of ways. So there is a science behind this, isn't it, Tom?
Yeah, and I like to, you mentioned the fast track. Well, one of the fast tracks to success that I found in my research was having a mentor. Now, what's a mentor? A success mentor is somebody who actually tells you these are the habits you need to have. This is the way you need to think. These are the decisions you need to make. You need to control your emotions. Well, most people don't have a mentor, Michael. You know, it's unfortunate, but that's just the way
it is. Yes, they do. It's on television. It's The Biggest Loser, or I don't know if you've got Married at First Sight there. That's their mentors.
Oh, I hope that's not true, but maybe you're right. My point is, like, so most people don't have a parent who's successful who can tell them this is exactly what to do. They don't have somebody in their career who puts their arm around them and says, hey, let me guide you along in your career path. Most people don't have that. But that's where we come in, because we are really the surrogate mentors. We know what we're talking about because we've studied this. We've mentored other people to be successful. And so we know what we're talking about. We're actually stand-ins for substitutes, if you will, for not having a mentor. That's how I look at what we're doing.
So you need mentors, but you also need a good mastermind team around you, because we've all heard that you are very much like the 5-6 people you spend most of the time with. So I know, Tom, you run all the every morning and you do a lot of exercise and you hang around other people who do similarly. On the other hand, if you've got people who've got bad habits and watch TV and go and drink at the pub before they go home and smoke and don't eat well, if they're the people you hang around, you're more likely to be like them. And that's why it's important to have mentors. It's important to have good group of people around you. And in fact, one of the things that we do together every year and have been doing for quite a number of years now is immersing ourselves with a small group of people once a year on the Gold Coast in Australia at Wealth Retreat. And it's coming up again in the second week of June this year on the Gold Coast in Australia. And if you're interested in joining us, come to wealthretreat.com.au, wealthretreat.com.au, and you'll actually find out all about this. People would wonder, why would a small group, where there's only 50 of us there, of already very successful people, entrepreneurs and business people, spend that much money in 10 days to learn and be with other people? But the end result of that time together is amazing, isn't it, Tom?
Yeah, I love that Wealth Retreat, for a lot of reasons. But one of the things that I've gotten out of it, and I go there and I speak about that rich habits to your group. And what I like about it is that those people, you're surrounded literally, your inner circle, you're creating what I like to call an inner circle of success. All of these people are successful. You had a woman there last year who started out with you, and she's been at it. She's not a spring chicken. She's been at it for a long time, and she's a huge developer now. She's a deca-millionaire. And so, she started small. She said, I want to be in the inner circle, and there she is. And now she's a very successful woman.
And Bridget has actually been back 10 times, and people wonder, why do you come back again? Why do most people come second or third time? And the main reason is because even though the questions are the same, the answers are different this year because you come back as a different person again. So wealthretreat.com.au, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you. And I know you bring a family member each year as well, Tom. So hanging around the right people, having the right mentors, having the right mastermind makes a difference. You also have to develop new skills, but you also need patience because life gets in the way, doesn't it?
Yeah, and this is one I struggle with. I'm not a patient person. When I was a top tennis player in the United States when I was young, and one of the chinks in my armor was I did not have any patience. Had I had more patience, I would have been much more successful. But I didn't have any mentors to teach me the importance of patience. And what we're doing today is teaching that. Patience is important. Nothing happens on your timetable. You have to keep pursuing things. You have to be persistent. And patience, if you are able to forge the rich habit of being patient, eventually luck will find you. But if you give up, you lose your patience, you're never going to be successful.
Warren Buffett well said that wealth is the transfer of money from the impatient to the patient. But my finding is that it's delayed gratification. We're saying the same thing in different words, that it makes the big, big difference. So we see a lot of people wanting to get rich quick. I get things in my inbox every day. You can buy 10 properties in 10 years, 7 properties in 7 minutes. Come to my weekend seminar and you'll go out and you'll be able to give up your day job. Life doesn't work that way, does it, Tom?
No, and that's too bad that they are playing to people's get rich quick desires. It's the same, actually, it's similar to socialism. It's I want it now. I don't want the problems. I want only the success. I want what I want right now. It doesn't happen that way. And the real successful people, the self-made millionaires, understand that. So they go at it every day. I always tell my son, who's just starting out in life, drip every day, drip, drip, drip. He's in sales in a big company, and he's doing exceptionally well because he is very patient. He will go after individuals 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. He'll be very, very patient. And eventually he gets them. How do I know? Because he's one of the top salesmen in his company. So you have to be patient, no doubt about it.
What we're really doing today, Tom, is talking about some of the success habits, some of the rich habits. We're not going to be able to cover all of them in our book, Rich Habits, Poor Habits, today, but it's just giving people a taste of it so that they can learn more by getting the book at richhabitspoorhabits.com. They can go to your blog at richhabits.net or mine at Property Update. And we'd really love a group of you to come and join us at Wealth Retreat. So even though there's a lot of very, very successful people there, and there are, and the group is kept small, don't count yourself out. Find out a bit more about it, because you've got to step out of your comfort zone. I think that's one of the things that holds people back. I remember I was speaking to somebody, one of the people in my mentorship program yesterday, Tom, and he set himself some goals for the future, but they were very low. And you know what? He's actually going to achieve them. That's the problem I find. A lot of people don't achieve what they deserve, not because they set the aims too high and don't get it. It's because they set their goals too low and they achieve them, Tom.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that. So, and back in 2010, when I came out with my first book, I was at a client meeting, and I was telling everybody about my book because I was so proud of what I had accomplished. And and my client said to me, "Well, how many books do you want to sell?" I said, "I want to sell 1 million." And he laughed at me. And I said, "You know, you can laugh all you want, but that's my goal. I'm going to sell 1 million. And if I hit 1 million, I'm going to sell 10 million." And he laughed some more. And you know what, Michael? I've sold 150,000 books. It's not 1 million, but it's 150,000 books. And I don't think he's laughing anymore. I think he realizes that I might just hit that 1 million, and I might hit that 10 million, especially if you're...
More than that, Tom, you've actually now been recognized as the leading expert in this field. So therefore, you're on regular radio, television, and internet programs in the United States and now around the world, and you're published around the world. And that's because you stepped out of your comfort zone. But I think the other thing is, what I like about you, and it's a habit others should learn, is the laser-like focus. You were focused on that and you didn't give up.
No, and I wanted to give up. In fact, I was only in this, author business for about 1.5 years, and I wanted to throw in the towel. I said, "This is ridiculous. I'm literally devoting 3 to 4 hours a day. I have another business I have to run. Now I have 4 businesses, but back then I only had 1 business. Then I introduced the author business, and I said, this is a waste of time. I'm not getting any traction." But I kept at it. I didn't quit. And yeah, it took another 1.5 years, but I got a lucky break, because eventually luck finds the persistent. And I got a big interview with Yahoo Finance. That led to a big interview with Dave Ramsey, who has 8 million listeners. He's a radio host. That led to a CBS TV interview. So all of these things happened because I didn't quit. And I didn't quit because I believed that if I focused all of my efforts on trying to be successful in this author business, that what's the worst thing that can happen is that I won't reach the big goals that I want, but I'll reach some smaller plateau. And that's exactly what's happened so far. But I have a feeling that I'm just scratching the surface, and who knows where I'll be 10 years from now.
Fantastic. I think another message I'd like to give is one of the success habits of wealthy people, successful business people, entrepreneurs and investors, is they actually develop unique skills. They get knowledge specific to their industry and become an industry leader. And unless you are different to the herd, you're just going to be like everyone else. So you have to get special skills, but also you've actually got to be able to help other people. You've actually got to add value to people's lives, Tom.
Yeah, I like to call this type of self-made millionaire the virtuoso. So the virtuosos are individuals who focus on whatever it is that they're doing for a living. They focus on trying to become the best at it. Now, we know virtuosos, there's LeBron James is a virtuoso. You have football players. You have musicians. You have authors who are virtuosos. Well, you're a virtuoso in the real estate industry. I'm a virtuoso when it comes to habits and success and wealth in the United States anyway. And so when you're a virtuoso, people, that is the people who you're serving, are happy to pay a premium to virtuosos for the service or the product that they provide.
Now, interestingly, part of this, I said you've got to learn new skills. It comes up over and over again, whether you listen to Warren Buffett or Bill Gates or anyone who's been successful, is they are still continuously learning, self-education every day.
Yeah, so I read something about Bill Gates. I actually had to read it because I was writing an article for Business Insider or CNBC. I can't remember which one. And they wanted me to write about Bill Gates. It was reading habits. And Bill Gates evidently reads about 2 or 3 hours a day, every day. And he even has a book blog. He blogs about the books that he reads. So, these people who are wealthy didn't just, get lucky and became wealthy and said, oh, I have all this time in the world, I'm going to start reading. They were reading long before they were wealthy. And why do they do that? Because when you read, you learn. And the best type of reading, in my opinion, to do if you're pursuing success is reading books about other successful people, biographies. I'm reading one right now on John Wayne. I can't believe how much I'm learning about his rich habits. He had so many good rich habits.
Interesting. So we've covered only a really small group of the rich habits successful people, rich people have. We haven't even discussed any of the poor ones this session, but I think this is a good time to say thank you, Tom, and there's a lot more to learn. We're going to keep doing this regularly on our podcasts, on your blog, on the blogs you do for Property Update. But I want to let the people who've given us their time today recognize that you actually have a choice. There is an opportunity for you to become rich, to become more successful, to step up. You've got to recognize what you're doing, what's holding you back, understand that you're driving around with some empowering beliefs and some disempowering beliefs, some rich habits and poor ones. But maybe to finish off, Tom, let's give them the understanding that you don't have to change it all at once, do you?
No. And here's the point. I think it's a good point. Baby step your way into success. You do that by maybe adopting 1 or 2 of the rich habits, and you can do that every 6 months. And after 2 years, you'll have 4 of these or 6 of these or 8 of these, depending on how many you adopt at first. But, you have a whole lifetime to improve yourself. And these habits, once they stick forever. Once a habit is formed, it lasts forever.
So what we're trying to do is make you aware of some of the things that you could be doing differently. Clearly you're doing things well. It's your choice now. If you want to be rich, do what rich people do. If you don't, then do what poor people do. It's really as simple as that. One of the things rich and successful people do is join us at Wealth Retreats. I'd love to see you there. And they also listen to our podcasts and read our blogs. So thank you so much for your time, Tom Corley.
You're welcome, Michael. Thanks for having me on.